He's going to stay right there, and he's going to stay calm because he's got that stoicism to him. And he's going to just wait and see if he gets pushed too far. If he does, okay, now I'm going to kill you.
Welcome back to the Men's Adventure Fiction Podcast. We're back again, another week in the books, and this is a pretty big week. Something just released.
I love the actual version. I'm still waiting on mine. I got
Fire in the Tall Grass came out last week. We had our fun little kind of breakdown talking about everything that inspires it, a bunch of different stuff around it. But this week's going to be pretty cool because it's going to talk even more about something that's very near and dear to Fire in the Tall Grass. You want to tell them what it is, my friend?
Oh, yeah. With Fire in the Tall Grass, I think the first draft, it was born right after watching Spencer Dutton for the first time and being like, we need more characters like this. I needed more. I was like waiting week for week to see, 10 minutes of Spencer Dutton. I was like, this is not cutting it. I got to see more right now. So, we're going back to where we started, man. This is our first ever episode was Spencer Dutton.
Yeah, so, man.
Kind of doing a full circle here, returning for Spencer Dutton Part 2. And I think, we could start here with a question of, have you seen both episodes of the new season?
I have. Right, Spencer Dutton is back, baby.
What are your thoughts of Spencer being back in business?
Yeah, it's pretty sick. It's so cool to from the start of this podcast, literally the first guy, Spencer Dutton. Great character from 1923, in case you're wondering who the heck is Spencer Dutton. Yeah. Season 2 came back 2 weeks ago now, I believe.
Yeah, this is the second.
It's actually, we're recording the Sunday before this goes live, so it literally was last Sunday was the first episode. So we got 2 episodes, but we wanted to hit the ground running, man. You can't not talk about the king. So I think just from the get-go, dude, once again, they're heaping us, loading up the coal chutes in the steamer, dude, with men's adventure fiction. It's like literally anything you can think of that would be like, what would a 1920s action hero do? They're making Spencer Dutton do it. So, I mean, starting it off with him on the boat trying to get to America from, I guess he was it England is where we left him?
Yeah, I suppose, because they were like aristocratic people when he was on there and like the sword fight duel thing, which again is so sick. Plays into why he's such a great character. Man.
Yeah, it may have been England. It may have been like Italy or Spain or Malta or Greece or something. I remember they kick him off because the duel went bad, and the season literally ends with him and Alex looking at each other, being like, "How are we ever going to find each other?" And then it cuts to, I think her name is Cara Dutton. Was Helen Mirren, right?
Yeah, I don't remember almost anybody else's name because I only pay attention. We'll get into it. Dude. The show for me is like a 2 out of 10, but Spencer is like an 11 out of 10. So I'm there usually.
Spencer brings the show up. So we just first scene is him literally in a boiler room, I guess, and this little Italian dude's bringing in shovels of coal, and he's like, "Dude, don't feed it too much. You're gonna blow us all up." and it's just like, he's in a sick short sleeve Henley. He's like all caked in coal dust and dirt, and it's just like classic, dude. It's literally exactly what you're looking for men's adventure fiction. It's like he's part all these characters that we love, but also the real life people like Louis L'Amour, who literally were just like hoboing it around, hopping from place to place, going anywhere they go. What about you? What do you think 2 episodes in?
Yeah, I'm with you. Where it's exactly picking up where we left off as far as, like, I don't know if it was the last episode when we were talking about Fire in the Tall Grass or if it was a different one, but we said it's like all the stuff that Hemingway did and all the stuff that Louis L'Amour did kind of combined and mixed into this amazing character. And that's immediately what I got the sense of, just like you're saying. It's like Louis L'Amour in his real life mixed with his fiction in that first episode, seeing him on the boat.
Dude.
Have you ever read Yondering by Louis L'Amour?
I don't think I've read it. That's different than Education of a Wandering Man, right?
Yeah, it's different. I think it's like a collection of short stories, if I'm remembering correctly, but it's very similar in vein to, not Midnight in Paris, Movable Feast from
Okay.
Ernest
Okay.
Hemingway, where it's like he's like taking some of the stories of his life, semi-fictionalizing them, keeping it like autobiographical.
Yeah.
And so you get to see like him going over to like China and stuff on a boat. It
They're
just kind of
probably
reminded me of
in
that.
the first half of the short story collection,
Nice.
the adventure stories, because there's
Yeah.
a lot of those stories that are like when you read volume one, it's broken
Mm-hmm.
down into a paperback of volume one and volume two. Volume two is all the like these are just high adventure stories. Volume one is like these are kind of we're not really sure where the truth
Yeah.
ends and the fiction begins.
Right.
So I'm sure they're probably like encapsulated in that to some degree.
But it absolutely gave me vibes for that, and made me almost want to pick my copy back out from the basement and reread that one because
Yeah.
I've only read it once, and it was really really cool. It had a black cover, and then he's like wandering the streets of either China or like Japan or something, and you see like the neon lights in the background. You see
So
this like
sick.
hobo sack and his leather jacket, and you're like, dude, this is awesome.
Man. And is it actually Louis or is it just like an
No,
artist
it's like a
rendition?
painting. It's like a
Dude,
just
I
a
gotta.
dude. It's
That's
very sick.
Louis the cover king too.
I know
He's
he really is.
yeah, dude. And to that point, another book that it reminded me a decent amount of
Mm-hmm.
would also be another Louis L'Amour book called No Traveler Returns,
Okay, I don't
which
think I've read that
is, yeah, it's actually I think it was only released like two or 3 years ago because there was a manuscript that he'd been working on, but it was very rough, and I think it was one of the first things that he wrote. Like he wrote a bunch of stuff and he submitted it, and it never kind of came to fruition. And he was like, "Damn it!" And he just started writing this one, and it was like semi autobiographical,
Nice.
semi like wish fulfillment for how he hoped his life was. So there's one character who's very much like Louis L'Amour. There's another character who is like, who Louis L'Amour ended up turning into, and then there's a character who's like Louis L'Amour's wildest fantasy of what he could be. And
Amazing. Is it amazing?
yeah, it's really good. It's very different than what you would normally expect from a Louis story. So
Yeah.
there's probably like 8 characters, and they're all crew members of this ship. And you go through this book, and as the actions happen, it flashes back to each character's kind of origin story. So you get to know them a little more personally. And so the one guy is like he might have killed somebody, and he became a hobo. He's like running with these 3 other dudes, and he's trying to get away from the law. And this is the guy who's like most true to Louis L'Amour.
Really, what are you trying to tell us here?
Yeah, is this a veiled confession? And so he ends up joining the freighter, and that's how he gets on there. And then there's another character who's just like king of boxing, good at everything he does.
Nice.
And apparently Beau L'Amour was like, dude, the early revisions of this, like this character was embarrassingly good at everything. Like it was like, Louis, are you trying to tell us this is who you are? And if this is
Yeah,
it,
this
you've
is
got like
also
such
me.
you got such a distorted view of yourself. But I don't want to get into too many spoilers or anything, but it has very similar things. You got the working on a ship, you got boxing stuff, which is another thing that happens in this
Yeah,
episode.
I
dude.
was so pumped for that. The old bare knuckle like brawls. So sick,
yeah,
first
dude.
off. If he would have been wearing like boxing gloves in a ring, I would have liked it even more. Maybe we'll get
Yeah.
that in the future. Who knows? Don't count it out. It might happen, but it was still very sick to see him doing that. And they did the classic thing too. So if spoilers a little bit for people who haven't seen the episodes, but like they give you the classic what happens in Troy. So spoilers for Troy, but where it's like so quick. You know what I mean? Like showing them how fast they can take someone
Yeah.
out. I love those because that kind of like just sets the stage for he's obviously sick, and then the next person that fights him, you get the longer kind of drawn out fight. But
Right.
also, they made him fight in a very kind of like realistic manner, I guess, for the time and kind of what they're going for overall with the message of 1923 and 1883, like the savagery, and it's not clean, it's not neat. It's the stuff
Yeah.
that my dad always talks about, like if it goes into like a fight in the street and it's a fight for survival. Like you see Spencer biting dudes, it's like faces
Yeah.
off, and like it's cool. Like it's very intense. So I'm happy with that first episode. Second episode was fine, but like I said, I mean, this is again why I don't like shows. It's like we have to do all this setup, so you'll have like one episode that's amazing payoff, then an episode that's setup mostly, and then an episode that's payoff. And I'm sure they try to balance like payoff setup with different storylines, but when I only care about Spencer, and if it's a setup for Spencer episode, like it seemed like episode 2 was, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But for episode 2, and if you have a different train of thought, we can come back to this, but it reminded me of what we co-read in the winter together, the Lucky Luciano
Yeah, dude.
book, because it was like a mafia guy added to this men's adventure fiction world. So what were your thoughts of them bringing in the mafia?
Once again, dude, literally, like, it's just so good to be a men's adventure fiction fan
Right.
for this show because it's literally everything you want, dude. We go from big game hunting to a war story for this is all the same character, which is crazy.
Right.
And then you have just like a lot of like man versus nature again, and then you have some more man versus man. Then you have a freaking duel
Yeah, the swords come out.
in a tuxedo on the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts. Then you get him bare knuckle boxing in a ship. And next thing you know, he's talking with the mafia and possibly going to be working. It's the 1920s, fellas.
Yeah,
That's
we're talking
bootlegging
bootlegging
time, baby.
yeah.
It's literally like, dude, what more can you ask? They're just giving you everything you could need. And I really love that too. I know I've talked before on the podcast, and I'll talk about it again now and in the future. But I've wondered and worried about that with the Nate Cole character. Like, am I doing too much? Am I adding too many aspects to his character? But it seems
It
like
only makes it sicker, I feel like.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
it seems like you can't add too many. They're like literally next thing
Right.
you know, dude, we're gonna get a 1943, and Spencer's gonna be in the OSS or something over in Germany. You know, like there's
Right.
literally no limits to what this character can do. So
And
I
yeah, as
really
a
enjoy
writer,
it.
I get the fear of that, but dude, think about it as a fan. Would you ever text me and be like, dude, now Spencer's special forces? I don't want to do that. Get out of my face. No, we would
No,
never be
not
like,
a
oh,
chance.
dude, now Spencer gets to, like, you know, go on a treasure hunt? I'm pissed. No, we'd be like, this is amazing. So
I know.
it's, the more you can give us, the better.
Well, and that's what to tie in Fire in the Tall Grass. He literally almost is the exact same thing that we talk about. Like, you can't just write an adventurer, dude. You got to give him some
Right.
kind of like. But that's literally what he is. That's what's happening. It's
I know.
he's just finding him. I mean, what did he say in the second episode? He was like, I just keep running into people who are looking for trouble and they keep thinking it's me or something like that, which is a great line. And he delivered it perfectly. And it's just, it's literally so true. Everyone sees him and they're ready to gun for him. I think that because we talked about Spencer Dutton last time and how he's such a good character and how men have to have some danger to them, how they have to be like ready to rock and roll. Not that they're like looking for trouble,
Right.
like these guys who are finding Spencer Dutton are. But I think that once again, we're kind of met with Spencer bringing these like really interesting concepts of masculinity to the screen in a way that no one else is doing. And I really enjoy it. I think that it's so well thought out and well rounded, and it calls on so many like past generations of heroes, and it's just great. I mean, I think that there's something about an inherently confident, strong, masculine man that makes other people feel threatened to some degree. And Spencer's like a prime example of that. They literally see him and they're like, all right, he's too tough. I got to go see if I'm tough enough to fight him. It's like the same thing as in the Old West when you had the fastest gun around. Everyone would go confront you because they wanted to make a name for themselves, you know?
Yeah, it makes me think of two things. One is early on, maybe episode 1 of season 1, where he's at that camp and the girl is talking to him and she like finds out he's American and she's like into him, and then her husband's there and he's just pissed the whole time. Like you said, there's like that thing that just like, this guy's too sick. You got to use the modern phrasing. This, you got a giga chad, you know, over here. And he's just, this guy, get him out of here. But to your point about like the thought out masculinity and kind of like what they're showing and kind of saying with his character, I really loved the line where he said men are kind of defined by what they don't do most of the time. In season 2, episode 1, when he's talking to that guy at the ledge, that line was so good. That struck a chord with me, because it's kind of what you and I always harp on with and we'll get into this stuff later. We'll talk about stuff coming out, but that's why we harp on, submit a novel, or make a short film. Do whatever it is that is on your heart, because too many men do get defined by those things they don't do. They become kind of like confined by the life that is being told, like, hey, this is the prescription. Live this. Don't go
Yeah.
outside of that. And I loved that line.
Right. And how many times I feel like everything that I regret the most is things that I failed to do or should have done and didn't do, or had an opportunity to do and didn't do it. It's like the things that I did and failed at, I look back at those and I see them as like clear lessons, like clear experiences where it's like, okay, that sucked. I hated that, but it's shaped me into who I am now. So that's great.
Right.
But then there's the things it's like, dude, I could have done something and I might have failed, but that would have been a good lesson. And if I succeeded, my life could be totally different. So I agree. That was a really good line.
Yeah, dude. There's that in like combat sports. They say like win or lose, or win or learn. Then there is no losing. But if you don't like take the fight, for example, then you didn't learn anything. You don't know if you're gonna win. You don't know if you're gonna lose, and sometimes it's worse. It's often worse.
Yeah, dude. A devastating turn of events.
Yeah. You mentioned about like the past heroes and harkening back. Do you mind if I read that quote that I sent you from Brandon? Brandon Sklenar? Brendan.
Sklenar, yeah.
But is it Brandon or Brendan?
Brandon.
Brandon Sklenar, dude. This is from him directly.
I said that super confidently, but I'm not sure now that I said it.
Yeah, no, I don't know why I second guessed it, but he's Brandon now. It's okay. But this is from him directly. He said, on the page, he's more than just an archetype, but he's reminiscent of these classic, iconic film masculine archetypes that you would have seen in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And he's got a bit of that Clint Eastwood vibe. He's got a little Humphrey Bogart. It's all kind of in there, and I think it resonates. What do you think about that quote?
I think it's one of the best. I think, and we may have talked about this a little last week, or it may have just been on the phone, but I think you can see this. You look at this character, and you see two different camps, right? You see one guy who's like, all right, this is a way for me to reach fame, right? And I'm just going to do this. I have no real, I guess, resonance with these past characters or the legacy that I'm holding here. Like, you might look at Harrison Ford and be like, dude, you were great in everything you ever made. Doesn't care at all about Indiana Jones. And then you got the flip side where it's like, dude, he gets on set. First thing he does is he's like, man, I don't know if you've read the script for my part, but there's like some serious Indiana Jones vibes going on. How do you think I should handle this character? Or he's literally sitting there watching those 40s, 50s, 60s, 30s series. He's memorizing Humphrey Bogart like monologues, Clint Eastwood characteristics, right. And it seems like he's doing that. And I think that to have this character who you and I clearly see so clearly is in this like archetype, is carrying this tradition on. And I mean, the whole reason we did our first episode of the podcast on Spencer was because you posted about him on Instagram,
right.
And it was like one of your most beloved posts.
That's when I realized people are into Spencer, and I think that says something about where we're at in culture and with masculinity. Like, there's a reason this guy speaks to all of us so much, and there's not much like him out there, right? I mean, as an example, it's 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Where have they gone?
There.
Where did those heroes go? It's kind of wild to think that. But it's true. I mean, let's take who we talked about, Clint Eastwood, and we can talk about Spencer and Clint Eastwood in a second. But just look at Clint Eastwood's career. That time period he was describing, obviously not the 30s, but ending at the 60s. Yeah. It's like, yeah, he had a few westerns after that, but they were always like those revisionist westerns that were kind of super critiques of where the genre was and what we were saying. So he never made like another traditional man with no name type western, unless you correct me in the comments. But for the most part, that kind of ended with the 60s and the end of the 60s. Yeah. And then 70s, that's where we just really, as a culture, we wanted to just tear down everything. We were like, well, like Taxi Driver, a great example, like showing how masculinity could be dark and like bad. And then it kind of was the narrative for too long. And you kind of lost out on classic heroism and that traditional masculinity that is positive and uplifting and is what masculinity should be. Like, all good men should be here to serve in a sense and be there for others. It's not like a masculinity for boastful like me reasons. It's for your ability to help others, which is,
Yeah.
again, what helps Spencer's story resonate so much. Like, his whole thing, if you think about it, is literally just getting back to save people. All
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. For real. That's a really good point. Yeah, I it's I mean you're spitting straight facts, my dude. I think it's
mean,
interesting. Go ahead.
Indiana Jones, I guess, would have come after if you were gonna like think.
Yeah,
these
yeah, I
heroes.
guess that's true. And Dirty Harry came after, but right? I think that was in the
Yeah.
70s. But that's also kind of like along the same vein where it's just like
Yeah, he's almost too much. He's like not the same as Spencer in a way.
right. But yeah, Humphrey Bogart's another great example. I mean, think of like the classic. He was in Treasures of Sierra Madre, African Queen. One of my favorite movies of all time would be Casablanca. And I think it kind of hints back to what we were saying about, we talked about Casablanca in passing before, about how like they do a lot of talking about the character and building up this person that he is. Whereas we were lucky in 1923 where we didn't just get talked about how cool Spencer was. They actually showed us, right? Like they have these building blocks that have come to make this character who he is and how he is. So very rewarding so far to have seen him be built up into the man that he is, where multiple times now he said, I kill for a living, don't fight me.
Right.
Where he understands the power that he wields, and he's certainly willing to use it, but he's willing to avoid having to use it as well, which I think is a really good point. I mean, even just the second episode of season 2, where he's with the mafia enforcer guy, I think his name was Angelo, and he's like, all right, I'm going. And the guy's like, sorry, you gotta stay for dinner. And he like tries to walk past him.
Yeah.
The guy steps in his way. He tries to walk past him the other way. The guy steps in his way, and he's like, all right, I guess I got to fight. Like, there's no other choice at this point. And I think that's also kind of like another touch point back to the first episode we were talking about, right? Like, that shows the difference between someone who is mature and confident in who they are as a man versus someone who's just like flying off the handle, the total wild card, right? Because Spencer doesn't need to feel like he has to prove himself to this dude, right? He's okay walking away. And I think that that's something that I always kind of get up in my head about, like, oh, should I just like start swinging? It's like, no, dude. Almost like 9 times out of 10, you probably should just find a way to gracefully make your exit. But it's so easy for me to get in my mind, like, no, dude, I just need to start like punching. Like that's the first thing I should do, obviously.
This calls for a headbutt. Yeah, he's got this stoic individualism, like mixed with just complete moral clarity. Like, he knows where he stands. Like, he's got this ethic or whatever. He's got the line that he's drawn. He's gonna stay right there, and he's gonna stay calm because he's got that stoicism to him. And he's gonna just wait and see if he gets pushed too far. If he does, okay, now I'm going to kill you. And now the headbutt comes out. It's like, but before then, he's so kind of like poker face, unreadable, with that stoic sense of like going back to the, what he mentioned, the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. That's what they had and what is kind of lost. And, even thinking about it in my own writing and stuff, especially on film, sometimes we lean too much into like the yelling matches and like people getting in each other's faces, and it's like, no, really the cooler characters that we like from that past, they're super calm, quiet about it, and they talk. I mean, isn't there the John Wayne quote about like speak low and slow and carry a big stick or something like that? It's like,
that's either John Wayne or Teddy Roosevelt.
okay, I might have just destroyed Teddy Roosevelt.
Well, but that's the whole point though, is that both of those guys are like
same
archetypes of exactly this. Like it's precisely what you're getting at. So if you butchered that, I think it was well done.
It's all right. I'll survive. I'll survive the butchering. I mean, I said that High Noon was a sequel, or Orlando was a sequel to High Noon last time. People are just gonna take what I say with a grain of salt. That's fine. The point remains. It's cool to see him be that and reflect that, of like, you don't see him doing the whole fly off the handle, I'm screaming at people, all the time. He's not like, he didn't yell at that guy like, get out of my face, like he wasn't like acting like a dude on the Jersey Shore. It wouldn't make any sense for his character.
Yeah. This brought up 2 diverging paths in my mind. First one is Louis L'Amour in one of my favorite books, Riley's Luck, which is in my top 5 from way back when. Riley told the kid that he adopted air quotes around that. He was like, "You're kind of small, so you just need to strike first and make sure you put the dude down, because right now you're not big enough to win the fight if it goes like to 2 rounds. Like, you need to put the person down and get it out of the way with." And I think that that's another thing that you're touching on there. Like, Spencer's not like, "Oh, dude, yeah, I'm gonna put you down, dude." He's just like, "All right, I'm just gonna do it. I'm not gonna tell him. I'm gonna do it." Next thing you know, he's unconscious, right? And I think that that's a really cool thing. That's something that Matt Helm also talks about in the Matt Helm series by Donald Hamilton, where it's like, dude, you can tell a professional versus a noob by the fact that they're not like waving their gun around, acting like that's gonna get people to stop. Like, they're just gonna shoot you. You're not even going to see the gun before you're dead, you know? So I think that's a really interesting thought process to be like, don't yell at people. Do what you have to do, right? Like, don't make a big deal about it. And then the second thing that it made me think of is, now this this may sound wild, and this is something that we can get into afterwards as well, because to your point exactly, dude, Spencer Dutton is such a great example of a good man and the proper ways that a man should work. The stoicism, the dispassionate use of violence, as opposed to like, I'm killing you because I'm mad and I can't control myself, right? And then one of the things that I like the most, and we just touched on it, like the walking away, being willing to not get offended, is a prime example, dude, is the Alex's fiance in the restaurant. And I think I talked about this in the first episode we ever did. He's literally like chewing Spencer out up and down, and Spencer's just walking away, right? And he's saying like, you're a man of no honor, you're a coward, you have no class, you're the worst. And Spencer just doesn't care at all. And it's like, dude, if I gotta remember that. Like, you're not here. That guy who's saying all those things to me, I don't care about him at all. Why am I going to let his stupid things that he's saying bother me? But then as soon as the guy starts insulting Alex, I think he calls her a whore, he goes after her. That's where Spencer draws the line. The same thing seems to happen throughout all these things, where if it's just to Spencer, he's okay letting it roll off his back. But as soon as it involves something bigger, right? Like, he's probably okay being strong-armed into going to dinner, but he can't do that because he has to go save his family, right? So now his family is in jeopardy. Now he's putting up his dukes. And I think that is one of the things that I have learned from reading the Bible and seeing the character of Jesus. This is what I was saying. You got to hold on for your pull up your boots.
Those same connection. I was like, this is biblical masculinity, what he's showing almost. And so
Yeah.
I'm glad you're bringing this up.
Well, because the Bible says, and this is, I think this right here is the crux of masculinity in my mind, and it's something that I've always struggled with. I'm a very easygoing person. I primarily laugh stuff off. I've almost never felt like I should take something personally, because I really just don't care about like 90% of it. Like I like to imagine that it's as badass as Spencer just walking away from the dude saying, "You have no honor, you're a coward," you know? But it's really just like, I just don't care. It's apathy. Right. Plain and simple. So there's a Bible verse that says, turn the other cheek, right? And when someone asks you to go 1 mile, go 2 miles with them. And it's talking about having grace, not feeling the need to really like assert yourself because there's a bigger story going on. But then the flip side to that is, like, a couple chapters after that, Jesus goes to the temple, and these money lenders are selling stuff in the temple instead of keeping it as a place to worship God. And Jesus just goes like nuts, dude, in a good way. He like grabs a bunch of twine and braids it into a whip and starts like cracking whips to scare the animals out and at the people, and just like flips tables. And it's so badass. I don't know if anyone's ever said that.
That's the thing, like the fact that he goes and makes that whip, because like if you read the lines, like there's nothing like where he didn't have a whip and then he creates like a whip. Like, he just builds that bad boy. I wouldn't be so have the ability to get angry and be like, you know what, let me just get this whip going here. Like,
I know, dude. Like, he had to do it quick too, right? Yeah. And I think that's to that point, right? Like, I remember talking to my youth pastor, my dad, other people that are strong in their faith. Like, how come Jesus says turn the other cheek, and then here he's like flipping the tables? Like, what is this balance between when should I turn the other cheek and when should I start flipping tables, right? Like, what's the deal here?
Right.
And I think it's exactly the same thing that's happening for Spencer, right? Like Jesus is saying, because Jesus gets berated all throughout the Bible. People are just
Yeah.
calling him out all the time, and they're saying like he's a dirtbag, he's not who he says he is. There's just a ton of stuff with that. But as soon as, and that he shrugs off, he's okay with that. There's like 2 or 3 parts of the Bible where they're trying to kill him, and he just like slips into the crowd and disappears. It's like he literally kind of ran away, and that's fine. But when it's about someone else, right? Now these dudes in the temple are dishonoring God. They're dishonoring someone who's important to Jesus, right? The God the Father. And it's the same thing for Spencer, dude. Spencer's totally fine. He lets it roll off his back until they start going after his family, his loved ones. And then he's like, all right, all bets are off the table, right? Like you crossed the line too far. So I think that's to find that balance of what it is to let things go and what it is to stand your ground. Crucial to becoming the man you're supposed to be.
Well said, dude. That is an amazing speech. I'm not going to add to it or misquote anybody to ruin it. So I'm going to say that was fantastic. And it makes you, excited to think about what's to come because we've seen this and they've established it so strongly. So what's going to happen when he actually comes face to face with the people who have been hurting his family? And we don't know how bad his family's going to get hurt by the end of this.
Right.
So like what's he going to do when he finally meets good old Timothy Dalton and when he meets the Irish? Like I said, I don't remember anybody's name.
Yeah, I don't remember his name either.
Also, like the Irish criminal, who they're kind of, maybe he was like this in season 1, but it seems like he's way more humanized in season 2.
Yeah.
And not so much like go black and white, like, oh, this guy's evil,
This is
crazy?
No, you're not crazy at all. But to your point earlier, dude, it's very hard for me to pay attention to anything other than the Spencer stuff.
Right.
I so much want to buy, and this is the thing that I feel like is tough is it's a good show, right? There's a lot of stories going on, and there's some interest.
It's an okay show.
There's some interesting things going, but I think it really suffers because Spencer literally is the main character, and everyone else is waiting on him. Like that's literally the story of the show. Like Jack Dutton. Or Jake, I think, is Harrison Ford's name.
Yeah, Jake is Harrison.
He can't do anything because he's too old. So we're literally sitting on the precipice of this incredible range war, classic Western tropes, marrying classic like high adventure tropes all in one. But it's all hinging on Spencer getting from Africa to Montana, and so everything else that's happening is like, okay, this might be like important in 7 episodes because I'm going to need to remember this name because it's important. Yeah, but it's not entertaining because it's just set up. Like you said, almost everything, the whole show so far has just been set up for Spencer.
That's where imagine a movie version that is like 2.5 hours, Legends of the Fall style. Like you get all just the highlights of all the best stuff from his journey home and then just a final act of just destroying people, and you're just this is the greatest movie of all time.
Yeah.
But instead, we're going TV show or 2 seasons, and you're just please get to Montana already. What are you doing, dude?
Right. Or if you're not going to get to Montana, at least like really just focus on Spencer Dutton being a bootlegger. For the next like 2 episodes, just have him in like this crazy chase scene where like whiskey's sloshing out the back and he's got a Tommy gun. Like give us what we want. You're just like mixing 2 things and it's not getting to where it needs to be quite yet. So the reason I brought that up is because you're saying like I feel like they're humanizing this guy more, and I'm like I don't know.
You're like, I don't want it.
I don't remember. I have no memory of this. I don't even remember why he's mad at the Duttons. I guess it's just another land thing, I think.
I'm sure it's a land thing.
That's just kind of the whole shtick of the Yellowstone saga.
Yep.
But yeah, I agree. He does seem more humanized from.
Yeah,
but like I said, I don't remember
open
anything.
up with his family and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And,
just
some of the stuff he's saying isn't as like rigid as it seemed like he was before.
Right. He seemed. I think that's because they made Timothy Dalton's character so much worse. Yeah, so it's like this guy started out as the bad guy, and you're like, okay, I hate this guy, and then they bring Timothy Dalton in, who's like the scungiest, worst bad guys of all time. Which, quick sidebar to back to what I was saying of how good Spencer Dutton is as like a person to look at and be like, all right, this is a great man to aspire to be like. This show is filled with some terrible things that really kind of take away from that, because you're sitting in 2 camps of like, dude, I'm going to tell like everyone to watch this. I'm going to tell like this 10-year-old kid at church that he should watch it because Spencer Dutton's a great man. Next thing you know, there's like crazy rape scenes going on throughout the whole entire show. It's like, dude, what the hell's going on, guys? Why are you doing us like this?
And this is where we've done the podcast so long now, and we're becoming too good of friends, because that's literally what I was going to say. Is like, I want to show my son this one day, but it's like now you have to kind of wait longer, and the conversations are way different than just being like, watch it entirely and then we can kind of talk about it. You have to like forewarn so harshly about like some of the things, or like, depending his age, you can't show him some of the scenes. It's like, it's so disturbing and dark to an unnecessary degree, in my opinion, like a very unnecessary degree in my opinion, with Timothy Dalton stuff. And it's like, why are we doing this? And like you said, juxtaposed with a great moralistic character that could teach men something about positive masculinity. And it's like, well, yeah, you got to find the needle in the haystack. He's in the show between like the absolute
slug through a bunch of grime to get to.
Right. That's killer. The biggest bummer about 1923 for sure.
I know, dude. Literally the night before I watched it, I was at a pipe event in Lancaster, and I'm smoking my pipe, sitting there talking with a bunch of dudes who have like already talked about how they're Christians. Like, dude, are you guys excited for 1923? And they're like, what's 1923? I'm like, only the greatest show ever with one of the most masculine characters of all time. The next day, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is on the screen right now? Like, wait. I can't believe I just endorsed this. These guys are going to think I'm a terrible.
What's wrong with Nathaniel?
It's like, no, you got to believe me. Spencer Dutton's worth it. Yeah, it's a bummer. But back to sidebar ended. I agree. I think that the build up, dude, and part of me thinks that some of the reason that they're showing these grotesque scenes that they're showing that involve different variations of sexual violence and all that nonsense is to show that Spencer Dutton gives no quarter to that. And I think that building that up in Spencer's story slightly, and then building it up with Timothy Dalton's character, is going to be like, dude, this is going to be like a head-to-head. We know where Spencer stands on stuff like this, and he's going to just wipe the floor with this guy when he finally faces him. And I think that that's what the show is just like. We're right on the precipice of some of like most insane episodes of television in history, dude, and it's so exciting. Hopefully,
it's gonna happen because there was this interview I was watching with Brandon Sklenar, and he was talking about something that again has flashed for us, and that we brought up on this exact point on our podcast. He said that like there were a few times when they were filming this season where the kid inside of him like lit up, and he was like, him and the writer, or not the writer, like the director who was on set with him would like lock eyes, and like the little kids in each of them were just like, that was so cool. Like, you know what I mean? It's that exact stuff that we talk about on the podcast, where it's like, when I'm writing Noah Redford, or when you're writing Nate Colt, or when we're watching stuff in this genre, or reading Louis L'Amour, we do have that little kid who ran around in the woods and made up stories. Like, that comes back, and you're reattached to that, or that reignites in you of like, dude, there's still passion, there's still like excitement, and just overall fun. Like that's what I love about this genre, is when it comes down to it, dude, this is so much fun. This is what I want to be engaged. I want to see, high adventure. Indiana Jones is pure fun. You know what I mean? So I'm excited for that, and the fact that he said that in the interview gives me some hope. Yeah,
I agree. And that ties into that quote you read earlier. And I mean, you sent one interview into the Discord with him talking about it. And it's just so cool to know that from what you just said there, with like their inner kids lighting up and being like, dude, this is awesome. And then also to have it built on all of these things. And our boy Jared Jenkins in the Discord, also the theme guy, he posted a couple weeks ago. I think it's called Haunted Harbor or Pirate Harbor, and it's a 1920s Republic serial, and it's so sick. It's so goofy. For some reason, in one scene,
it's so funny.
In one scene, he's chasing this guy, and they're in like a canyon all by themselves. All of a sudden, the guy's climbing up a ladder that just goes up a cliff. I was like, where'd the ladder come from? Why is that there? It was crazy, but it's awesome. And so you have things like that in this show, and you have things I mean, not like the crazy random ladder.
Right.
That's definitely not in here. But you have like the heart of the serials. You have
Hmm.
Indiana Jones. You have all of this stuff. And to know that Brandon Sklenar is like doing his due diligence, right? And he's not just phoning this in to get a check to go on and then make some like weird ass high art thing.
Yeah.
It's an Oscar bid. Like he wants to play a role like this, and he's admitted that this is a role that doesn't come around anymore, and he's got it, and he doesn't seem to be wasting it. That's so sick.
Two other cool things about Brandon that I just learned in preparation for us doing this tonight was that, one, I think I kind of knew this one, he wants to be Batman, but two, he was a martial artist, which I did not know.
Dude.
Like, he spent his childhood in construction and, like, martial arts, and he was like, that. I think these are some of the things that helped me portray Brandon in the right way. And this goes to a point that we may or may not have talked about, but it's why I think you are so good at acting and able to do Nate Colt, is that I've seen you in your real life climb up and do, like, horrifying, to me, horrifying things, stunt-wise, and you're like,
Thanks, man.
you're living, you have that in you, you know what I mean? Like, if you have none of that in you at all, super hard to, I don't think you'd be able to convince people on the same level, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I think that it just people can sense inauthenticity and authenticity. Not that I'm like, not that I actually am Nate Colt by any stretch of the imagination or anything like that, but it's like if you aren't writing stuff from a place of like either dreaming about it all the time or spending your time like actually shadow boxing and practicing a quick draw and climbing stuff, and I mean you've gone on multiple hunting trips doing crazy stuff, you know, so it's like, dude, it's so sick to have. And I think that this is why we love people like Louis L'Amour, Ernest Hemingway,
Right.
Jack Carr, because you look at them and you're like, dude, they're writing these sick stories, and they actually aren't just like, they're not writing them because they're afraid to do them in real life. They're doing them in real life to help them write them, and it's so cool to have that channeled in there. So I love that, and that's like, for me, writing is a tangible outlet to the things that I try to do all the time in my free time, which is
Yeah.
just go on adventures, you know?
There's no replacement for perspective and, like, experience with this stuff. That's
Yeah.
why I think John Bernthal, Frank Grillo, these, like, more masculine dudes that do train in their real lives and have that, they have more action hero in them than other actors. Why it plays on screen really well. You know what I mean? Same thing with, like,
Yeah.
when you're doing your stunts and you have the ability, you're into that, so, like, it works. So
Well,
yeah,
thank you.
I'm glad that he's got the role, and I'm glad that you've got the role of Nick Cole, because it works
I
out.
appreciate being even mentioned or thought of in connection with any of these dudes. So thank you very much.
Well, dude, you're on the way. You're going to do the same thing that Brandon's doing. Just give it time.
Well, and to that point, I mean, when we met up in November to film the live action trailer for Fighting Heart of Man, as well as the Nate Colt Thomas Redford crossover, I remember watching you and Casey do a fight scene, and you were like getting pissed because choreography, I'm sure all of you guys watching know this to some degree, but when you're choreographing fights for movies, everything is a lot more loopy and kind of like wide. Whereas in reality, in a real fight, you're going tight and close, and you're going quickly because you don't want to get caught up in all that stuff. Because if someone throws a punch like this, you've got time to go under it, or you got time to literally stick up both hands and catch it and flip them, which is the whole point of doing it. I remember watching you do these fight scenes, and you guys are just like actually, because Casey also has combat sports training, right? Like he has military
Yeah.
experience, and you're a boxer. And you're like, dude, I hate this. I should be good at this. I can't. And it's because you're actually like fighting. I literally was like, dude, you guys should just go at it and I'll record because that would be awesome. So to that point, I think I've heard before that fight choreography is actually closer to like dancing choreography than it is to
Yeah.
real combat sports. So you're too good at fighting that you were having a hard time with the choreography, but you picked it up, and I think those are some of the best fight scenes that I've ever filmed or been a part of because they're so clean. You can tell that you two actually like could probably kill somebody with your hands if you had to, which is
Well, I
great.
appreciate it. That was a lot of fun in, like, that competitive nature. Like, I do want to do it again because
Yeah,
I feel
dude.
like I freaking flubbed it. So I want to go. I want to keep doing it. And
Well,
we could, I mean, go ahead.
And think of that though, as like on big budget movies, right? They probably practice. I know for a fact that in Mission Impossible Fallout, when Henry Cavill and Tom Cruise had that fight scene in the bathroom with the Asian guy. That was supposed to be like 3 days of shooting, and it ended up taking 3 weeks because they just kept going because they needed to get it perfect. So imagine if we had 3 weeks to do one
Yeah,
like
dude.
5 minute fight scene, dude. It would be incredible. we literally every fight scene that we did there, we choreographed in like 30 minutes before we shot it, right? Every fight scene I've ever done. See, this is the problem with not having a budget and kind of shotgun filmmaking is that you just literally have to, you can't be like, hey, buddy, you want to meet for the next like 3 weeks every weekend so that when we meet next week, we can actually have the fight scene memorized perfectly. But I digress.
Man, if we had 3 weeks, and this is like I said, the competitive nature, I still think about this probably once a week, getting pissed about it. It was like when I kept ducking under, and I was supposed to come up with the jab, but I was like in my head, I'm going to come up with a hook because that just makes more sense to me.
Right,
so
right.
I kept coming up and then doing
you're a
the
real
hook,
fighter.
and you were like, no, remember it's a jab, and Casey was like, no, it's a jab, and I was just, I know it's a jab.
I'm hooking, baby.
And I just couldn't get it, so I still think about that. I'm like, dude, I could. No matter how many times people told me, I was just, yeah, got it, coming up with a jab, and they would come up immediately. Oh my gosh, it was so funny. So yeah, if we had more time, and that's kind of why, not to get ahead of ourselves, but we are going to get into this. But like for the Western, we're going way more time ahead.
Yeah.
It doesn't release until July 4th. It would need to be like done and wrapped by July 1st. But just going to get started on. We're getting started on it now because
Yeah, dude.
we want more time. Everything is better with more time.
100%. Yeah. So I guess to round out the stuff with Spencer, what are you hoping happens before season 2 ends? Or what are you afraid might happen?
Yeah. So, yeah, my biggest fears and biggest hopes kind of are intertwined in a way where I think I all but know that he's not going to come to Montana until like the tail end of this. If not the last 2 episodes only or last episode, I don't know. I think my biggest fear is like how exciting are they going to keep it when he's on the road there? Because that can either be the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is like, wow, well now we get to see Mafia version of him. We get to see whatever else he does. Like, boom, bang, boom. Maybe we can do sick adventure after sick adventure on the way to Montana.
Yeah.
But if it's more episodes like we saw in the second one where it's just, oh, here's a nice setup. See you next time for Spencer to get 1 inch closer. Here's a setup. And it's like, that's going to drive me nuts. So my biggest fear is that in his long, drawn out, never getting to Montana, they're only going to drip feed us what they think is the bare minimum of adventure. And my biggest hope is that this actually means we get just kind of what we said with season 1, where it's like, man, we got all the different set pieces. We got suits on the high seas sword fight. We got ocean, middle of the ocean, upside down boat, ghost ships and stuff going by. We got African hunting. So hopefully it's that. Hopefully we do have a large scope.
Yeah.
And many, many cool things to look forward to. But what about you? What are your kind of hopes, dreams, and fears for Spencer season 2?
Spencer season 2, baby, because that's all that matters.
Yeah, dude, 1923 is not the name. It's Spencer.
Dude, I wonder if you could do like a cool little graphic design thing where you did 1923, but the 3 turned into an S, and you just spelled out Spencer. That would be funny.
1920 Spencer.
Yeah. I think I'm of 2 minds with this. The first is I'm worried that he's going to get to Montana too soon, and the series is going to end.
Yeah.
So we'll get it'll be maybe 2 more episodes. I think there's eight total, right?
I think so.
For the season. Yeah, so we're at 2. I think 2 more. He gets there. The next 4 are like a war story, essentially, just fighting for the ranch, which would be really cool. And this is the thing. It's like if that happens, sick. That would be awesome. We're gonna have some crazy set pieces. It'll be so cool. It's kind of like Legends of the Fall,
right,
where you see Tristan finally get to be in his natural habitat and just kill. And we know that Spencer he kills for a living, so he's going to be an absolute machine. It's going to be really entertaining. But the negative of that is I don't know where the series could go from there.
Season 3 wise, what would happen type thing.
Yeah, what would happen? That seems kind of like the natural end of the story arc, and I don't know if this since 1883 literally was one and done, my first concern was like, they're just writing it for the single story. There is no plan for this to be like Yellowstone, where they just try to keep it rolling. So that's concern one. Second concern would be exactly what you're saying, where it's like he doesn't get there until the end. So the way that I think it is, it's either going to be what I just said, where episode 4, he's in Montana, and the rest is fighting Montana.
I think I'd prefer that.
Yeah.
Probably.
The other option is, and this could be bad or good, season 8, he gets to Montana, right? And up till then, he's just had like this crazy ride. And either it's not a crazy ride, and it's just some of the worst TV we've ever seen, and we're super bummed, or it's something like he's doing this bootlegging thing, the cops come after him, he gets rid of the cops, then like a rogue mafia syndicate comes and like, you can't be on our territory. So then he's fighting the mafia, and then his truck breaks down, and so he has to hop on a train. On the train, there's like 2 evil hobos, and now we got like a sick train chase, and then he stops in like a town, and one of Timothy Dalton's cronies is there, and he knows he's there, so he sends like his gangsters, and they have another kind of like tuxedo, like another James Bond set piece on the train, dude. So I think that I would prefer that to some degree, or like he meets up with Alex in like St. Louis, and then there's them like running from bad guys, because then season 3, all of season 3 is just the war, and I think that would be really cool. I don't think that's going to happen at all, though. And I think that if it did happen, it would be the bad version, where it's like, what the hell am I watching this for?
Yeah.
I'm here for Spencer, and we're getting like 10 minutes of him each episode, and it's really boring stuff. Like maybe he throws a couple punches because he's a big punch guy.
Yeah, definitely a big punch guy.
So those are my kind of like 3 thoughts about it.
Fair enough, dude. I don't think they would go as far as to like kill him, but imagine that. I think worst case scenario is like, he
that would be
dies
crazy.
heroically in the end because he has like a kid on the way and stuff.
Right.
That would probably be the worst case scenario.
I didn't even think about that. That's
no
terrible.
more Spencer, dude. Because I mean that's okay. No, I won't do this because it'll spoil a whole different show. I'm not gonna do that. I'll tell you off air. But so I do think one positive, one piece of hopeful information is that unless we're nuts, I think Spencer's like obviously everyone's favorite, right? I mean, this is not just us, right? I think that money talks as well, and people are just going to be like, we got to do something else with Spencer. Like, this is too much of a gold mine. You know what I mean? I think since
that's a good
it's
point.
the business of like making money and like they want to do whatever's successful, you might just out of corporate greed get way more Spencer for that reason, and I'd be fine with it.
Yes, corporate greed, baby. Finally working for us.
Because, you look at it and they see Brandon's, like, net worth and, like, kind of just popularity keep going
his
up.
trajectory, dude, is crazy.
If let's say he does get Batman like he wants in James Gunn's, which, like, Robert Pattinson's already paying Batman, so I don't know why they're saying there's a vacancy.
Yeah.
Is there going to be 2 Batmans?
Yeah, there are. So apparently the Batman is working. Yeah, crazy. The Batman is its own universe.
Okay.
And then there's it used to be the DCEU, but I guess it'll be the DCU or something like that now, which is starting with James Gunn's Superman, and then there's going to be a whole Justice League that they're going to flesh out. Okay. So they have to recast Batman. And they also, crazy enough, they've also talked Jack Reacher's Alan Ritchson wants to play him as well.
Cutest Batman ever.
I know. So, dude, we got 2 men's adventure fiction legends talking about being Batman, dude. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
So let's say.
Yeah. So you're back to what you were saying.
Yeah, for the sake of argument, let's say he gets this Batman role. You're telling me they're not going to absolutely be like, we're going to do a Spencer movie or we're going to do Spencer season 3. Like,
yeah, dude.
They wouldn't leave that money on the table. They just wouldn't.
Yeah, well, that's actually very reminiscent of Tom Selleck in Indiana Jones and Magnum P.I. because that was the pitch. I don't know if I should talk about this because we're going to eventually do a Tom Selleck episode, but listening to his memoir, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were like, we want you as Indiana Jones. We'll wait for you for however long you want us to wait. And then his lawyer was like, yeah, dude, you'll obviously get both because you're going to be Indiana Jones, and then that's going to make everybody love you. And then the CBS or the NBC or whoever it was, the heads will have a megastar signed on for a 7-year contract. And the CBS heads were like, no, if he signs on for Indiana Jones, he's going to leave and cancel his contract, so we can't let him do it. So they just like screwed everybody
That
over there.
sucks.
Yeah,
That's
big bummer.
oh, so that could end up happening for Batman. He'd be like,
Dude, that's what I
I'm about
was.
to get Batman, and you're just, no, you're Spencer. You're Spencer. Spencer. And then he
I
resents
know
the character,
tanks
and it's a nightmare.
tanks everybody's career. It's terrible. I don't know who was thinking that was a good idea.
I know, what the heck? That would be nothing but good. And Tom Selleck seems like such a nice guy. He wouldn't just like
Yeah.
abandon the show. You know?
Well, that was literally that's what Tom Selleck's whole memoir was about. It was like I guess they just didn't realize that I was a Manda character, and I would
Right.
never have done that. Which I think seems to be true of Brandon.
Right.
So hopefully, dude, him being Batman, that would be crazy. That would be so sick.
I'd enjoy
And you're
it.
exactly right, dude. Having Spencer Dutton and be Batman, dude, you'd just be locked in. You'd be milking that for whatever it can be. Which is really funny. We watched the first episode, my wife and I, and she was like, because Spencer seemed like he was 70% of that episode, right? I mean, he was really like highlighted in that episode.
Yeah, I know. He was much more than in the second.
Yeah, the second was brutal. But I was sitting there talking, like, just like laughing. I was like, dude, this is awesome. He's literally in almost every scene. And she was like, dude, and that's the actor's dream too, right? Can you imagine being in a series and after the first season, they're like, all right, rewrite the script so that
shift focus.
Spencer's in it more. Because, I mean, dude, how cool would that be to hear that everyone loves you so
Yeah,
much?
dude. Especially
That's
when
awesome.
freaking Harrison Ford is a guy you're like fighting against, I guess, story wise.
Yeah, you're
People are
opposite.
Like, I'd much rather see Spencer than Harrison. It's like he's probably just wait, what?
Dude.
He's Indiana Jones. What are you talking about?
This bodes well for Spencer too, because where Tom Selleck could not defeat Harrison Ford, Brandon Sklenar has.
Yeah.
He seems to have taken the torch from.
That's a wild thing, not to make this a Magnum episode like you said, but I actually much prefer Harrison. I don't think I would like Tom Selleck's Indiana Jones, so I'm kind of happy with how it worked out, I think. Even though I love Tom Selleck so much, but it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. I wish we could have like a real life Marvel's What If about this and see Tom Selleck as Indiana Jones, because I think it probably would have been sick. And that's the thing is like you're now we can't detach Indiana Jones from Harrison Ford, right? So it's like because we talked about this, or we will talk about this sooner or later, but Jim Steranko's the art I think was drawn after Magnum or Tom Selleck.
Makes sense. More jacked than Harrison.
Yeah, more kind of because Harrison Ford's like he's definitely masculine. I don't want to say like Harrison Ford is not a masculine actor, but I think, in my opinion, I had a whole debate with a bunch of friends about this. I personally think that Tom Selleck is like the most masculine actor of all time. Hot take.
Whole statement,
Debate that in the comments. We could talk about that all day.
Yeah, don't get me started. We'll do an episode on that. That sounds fun.
Yeah, that would be a great episode. But I spoiled my answer because I'm not changing that. Although
we could debate it.
Yeah, we could, and I could say another one of my favorite actors is also up there. But
just blurts it out immediately.
I'll save at least something for that episode to surprise you guys with. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I was thinking like, dude, if Tom Selleck was him though, and that's the other thing that you think about too is like, what if Tom Selleck had played Indiana Jones and it had bombed because it wasn't hit? That would be.
Yeah. What did you think of the well, okay, we can't get into this. We'll talk about this off today. When he plays Indy for a bit.
We'll talk about this.
We'll get to that.
Tune in for the Magnum PI episode, Tom Selleck feature, and also the most masculine actor of all time episodes in coming weeks.
There's fun episodes coming up. But like you said, let's round out Spencer. Hopefully we can report back at the end of the season and be like, whoa, mind's blown. Set us up for season 3 where he's going to find the Holy Grail. Sounds sick.
Sounds good to me.
Come from?
The end of season 2 is Harrison Ford taking off his hat and putting it on his head.
Yeah, dude, let's go. Somehow he has a whip now. Here you go.
Just like Jesus, dude. He like weaves it. Dude, this is almost sacrilegious at this point.
I went too far with Spencer.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can leave it there and hopefully come back to you with positive news. But now, let's end off with like an end segment about kind of just we talked about a few episodes, obviously, that are coming out, but what else is coming out in the world of what we're doing with Veritas and writing and film
man.
and all that kind of stuff? So let's hear a few things, and starting with you, because you've had some exciting news that you've been talking to me about and kind of getting me hyped about Nate Colt's future. So hit the people with some information. Dude.
Well, Noah Redford came out on, what was the 25th, right? February 25th.
25th.
So a few days ago. Awesome book. Check out Fire in the Tall Grass. You will not be disappointed. If you like this episode talking about Spencer Dutton, you're going to love this book. Also, dude, look at this. This is so similar to, let me see if I can pull this up. I got Louis L'Amour right here. Dude.
And you know that was absolutely intentional.
Oh, yeah, dude. This isn't even the right type, because a lot of Louis L'Amour stuff is a lot closer to this.
Yeah, I'm trying
I literally saw this when I got it in the mail. I was like, dude, this is a this is sick. So good work there. But yeah, we gotta keep men's adventure fiction content rolling. So you got, maybe, I'm hoping somewhere in the April, May, kind of later spring time frame, there is going to be a Nate Colt book coming out, and it's going to be a fun one.
You've explained the plot to me. Amazing. So for people who love the genre, this is going to be, you could read it right before or around the time you're going to see The Last Mission Impossible, and it would be the greatest double feature of all time.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
So
This one does revolve more around treasure hunting, which is funny. All of my life playing Nate Colt and writing Nate Colt stories, everybody's like, oh, he's kind of like Nathan Drake, isn't he? I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess so. I've never actually done anything with treasure hunting, though. But everything's been building up to treasure hunting, because that is, in my mind, like the pinnacle of high adventure.
Right.
And so this one is Nate Colt kind of in his earlier years, and he gets hired to find a missing treasure, and it's pretty sick. Lots of crazy stuff, lots of chase scenes, fight scenes, maybe even some war-torn regions, dude. You'll never know.
I was going to say, I'll take you to locations you will not expect. Like, this is not one you'd be like, oh, predictable read. It's going to be a page-turner, because you'd be like, wait, what? All right, let's
where
go.
are we now?
Sweet.
Yeah, but there are going to be some nods to Mission Impossible for sure. Some similar locations even. So it'll be, dude, that's kind of cool. Maybe I'll have to have it come out right before.
Same week or something.
Yeah, the same week, just like you did.
Finish it so you can.
Fire in the Tall Grass in 1923. Genius stuff. You're thinking with your head there, my friend. So yeah, that's coming out. Very excited about it. Excited also to possibly do a live action trailer for it, since I have played Nate Colt in 3 seasons of YouTube series, which is linked below if you want to check it out. But yeah, awesome stuff. I love writing that character. It has been a very cathartic experience for me. Growing up, that character was created out behind my best friend's house, dude. Just running around with my airsoft gun in my shoulder holster, made of duct tape, because I didn't realize you could buy them. Good times. So to be able to write them in a much more, like, not mature in that, like, they're super violent or graphic in any sense, but more like well thought out, well rounded, with more of my own life behind me to kind of have more experience and more lived experience to put into there. It's been so much fun.
Dude, we're talking about the guy who wrote Giacomo Ferrantino, the greatest character of all time.
Thanks, dude.
Story of all time. Giving out your first, like, this will be your first kind of like longer novel situation that people will get to read out in the real world. So this is like super exciting stuff. This will be your big kind of like, I don't want to say debut, because you did debut with the short story collection, but this will be like the real showcase of the full Nathaniel story. So I'm excited for this one to come out. And also, like you said, excited for kind of the promo, because you have played Nate and you are the Nate Colt character. So it's we can do some very cool stuff and very fun, exciting stuff.
Yeah, man.
It's awesome content going to come from this. I'm excited, because that's what it's all about, dude. Just making content, having fun doing this.
Oh yeah, dude.
This is the dream.
I know. It's literally what it's all about. It's so crazy to see Fighting Heart of Man out in public, like people posting it in the Discord and stuff. Like anything that I've created that people are actually watching, or if someone sends me like a text message picture of them watching the new Adventures of Wanderers episode on their big screen TV, dude. I was like, dude, this is too kind. I can't believe that. That's nuts. So it's really cool. I appreciate anyone here who's listening, watching, buying the stuff that we write or watching the stuff we put on YouTube, man. It means a lot. I love telling stories. I love reading stories. That's why we've got the Men's Adventure Fiction podcast.
Right.
How about you, my friend? What are you working on coming up here?
So yeah, novel wise, I kind of nodded to these two things, the two most upcoming ones in the live stream I did.
Yeah.
But first one is gonna like the one that's gonna come out sooner is my first foray into the actual classic Western genre, where I'm gonna follow a U.S. Marshal character. Yep, teaming up with a Comanche warrior against a common enemy, and that's all I'll say for now. We're kind of still
Dude.
working out the pitch to do it well, but instead of going on like a 15-minute rant, be like, well, it's kind of like, and then this what happened, So I'm trying to, I'll leave it vague for now as I come up with a more concise pitch for you guys. But it's a very cool classic Western with a fun new character of mine, which is a U.S. Marshal
Dude.
back in the Wild West. So I think that'll be a fun read because I love Western. I love Westerns. So we talk about Louis L'Amour too much. So a real, Vipers was my modern Western nod to it, but this will be the full-blown attempt at an actual one. So
Well, so exciting.
And then the second Noah Redford novel is going to be right after that one. So we're going to show him a little bit younger as a professional boxer out in London, doing some having like a match or two, and he falls in love with Rebecca, his one-day wife. But she's got some mob ties, and he has to break her out of there. So it'll be. I'm excited. It'll be a fun Noah Redford summer, followed by right after you get to read the Western and get some more adventure.
Dude, if Spencer Dutton in 1923 lets us down, we know Noah Redford will not. So, I mean, you've got the African hunting, treasure hunting adventure, and now you're going to have something that's boxing and mob ties related, dude. It's literally, it's what we need. It's exactly what they're trying to do with Spencer and mostly succeeding. But it's only Spencer, dude. So thank you. As a Men's Adventure Fiction fan, thank you for writing this and making this real.
Thank you for humbling me. I think a good compliment I've had on it so far is when I explained it to Casey. He was like, dude, that's literally just everything you love. What are you doing? And I was like, exactly. That's everything I love. I was like,
dude.
This is what it's all about. Just shove everything I want to see into one book so I can read it. And that's, like you said, Fire in the Tall Grass is the treasure hunting version. This is going to be kind of like the, I don't know, in the vein of like a Guy Ritchie type thing.
Yeah, dude.
But again, keeping it kid appropriate because I want to be able to hand this to a 10-year-old, get them into reading. So yeah, I'm excited for those two. And
That'll be very cool.
Dude, the next thing is for both of us is we get to dive into the Western in the flesh as actors. So we're doing the filmmaking.
Yeah, man.
Short film, which you guys can enter. We can put maybe a link to the Instagram and then maybe some rules. We'll think about the best way to kind of link this, but it's $500 reward, due July 1st, 5 to 15-minute short film in the Western genre. And dude, I'm so excited. This is going to be so exciting for so many reasons, not the least of which being that it's going to be the biggest event yet because Casey just this weekend secured the location for us to be able to show this.
Let's go.
You guys, including ours, at this like bar club thing that has a stage and a big screen and stuff. So like this will be, the production value is going to be amazing because it will be not just on YouTube, it'll be in front of a live crowd of people. So I'm pumped.
So cool.
That'll be so fun. And then you got the $500 prize going to someone who's worked hard on their work, like getting that reward. I'm excited for this one, dude.
Yeah. You guys should definitely check out the promo. Maybe we'll attach it to this episode because phenomenal marketing from this man and Casey from Veritas Entertainment. Dudes are killing it, killing the game. But yeah, incredibly excited for this. And this is what's cool is we're here right at the beginning of March. Isn't due until July 1st. So you've got 4 months.
Don't ask me, dude.
Seems
March, April, May, June, July. You got 4 months.
yeah.
Like 4
July is
months.
the 7th month, and we're the 3rd month, so it's got to be 4.
Yeah, so we're in.
4 plus 3 is 7.
The Men's Adventure Fiction Math Club.
Yeah, I'm a genius. I know it. But that's a good deal of time. I mean, in the grand scheme of filmmaking, which making movies takes years, that's not a ton of time. But dude, in the grand scheme of a 24-hour film festival,
Right.
I can't do the math on how many days 4 months away is, but it's a lot. It's like at least 120, I think.
It's more than one. Let me
So
tell
that's
you.
120 times 24. So you've got 120 24-hour film festivals that you could do in the Western genre. So, I mean, don't do that. Don't submit
Don't do that.
120. That would be terrible. But you could do it. It is
You
possible.
could. Yeah, dude.
So I think that this is just like, I'll shoot straight with you. I am intimidated by trying to do a Western, and I've made a lot of content in the past. But you got to push yourself out of your comfort zone. And I'm saying this to the viewer, to you, Luke, but most importantly to me, dude. Cowboy movies, some of the coolest stuff of all time, dude. The
Right.
Magnificent Seven's in my top 25 favorite movies. The Comancheros is probably in there. Rio Bravo is probably in there. Don't even get me started on the Clint Eastwood stuff. It's just so great. And I mean, my number 4 or 5 of my top 5 favorite books is Riley's Luck, which is a Louis L'Amour Western. So to have the opportunity to craft a story in the Western genre and put on the cowboy hat, dude, twirl around the 6-shooters, it's worth it. And you got to do it.
Yeah, that's what I love about this and what we're doing, and like the ideas of like getting the everyday average person who would not have thought of themselves as a filmmaker or actor to be like, oh, I could do that. Now there's maybe a reason to do that, especially that's why we're trying to get the rewards bigger and bigger every time. Is like that incentive to push someone because, you know, deep down they might have had that dream when they were a kid and they let it go or something. So it was cool this weekend to see Casey talking, and there was a guy who was walking around with like a cowboy hat on, and Casey was like, come here. He was like, you ever wanted to be an actor? And he like talked about the flyer. He's like, you have the look for it. You could do this Western short film. So him like he was doing that all night, you know, just anybody who looked remotely like they could be in a Western. He was like, you look like you've got the look, dude. You should be in a Western. And I hope that does stir one person to be like, you know what? Let me try it. Let me try this.
Yeah.
And you never know what could come from that, you know. So I'm pumped that, or I'm pumped to see what the community comes up with, like what everyone does for their Western. So,
Yeah, man. And you may be like, oh, I can't film anything. I don't have a camera. But this right here,
phone, dude.
all you need, dude. There's tons of stuff. So many. I mean, how many advertisements do you see on TV where it's an iPhone commercial? And literally at the end is like, this was shot on an iPhone, whatever number we're on now.
Right. Yeah.
So don't, obviously, like, don't be like, oh, I hate these guys. They're making me feel bad for not doing this. Don't do it if you really can't do it. But if you're questioning yourself right now, be like, could I do this in 4 months? Try to do it, man. Try to make it happen. Life is busy. Life is hard, but there's nothing quite like looking at a finished product, dude, of you being a badass or you telling a story that's incredible on a visual medium. There's nothing cooler.
Dude, all it's got to be is 5 minutes. Just because it's a Western doesn't mean it needs to be outside even, you know? Find a place with wooden background.
Yeah, dude.
Wear the cowboy hat. You're 5 minutes inside, done. Like,
yeah, write some
to,
some tight dialogue, dude.
right?
That'd be
I'm
awesome.
excited because it will take a lot of kind of like creative problem solving. Me and Nathaniel were talking on the phone earlier this week. Me and Casey want to get a shot of a horse or like someone riding a horse in the thing. And we're like, you know, I was saying an idea, and then Nathaniel was like, probably gonna have to wear a helmet. And then I was like, oh, dude, they make us wear a helmet as it came over. So
Yeah,
like, there
dude.
are obstacles we're gonna hit up against, and we might not get the horse in, but it's like you can't let that. You can't let the sitting and talking diffuse you and be like, all right, well, I guess I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Find another way, you know, find a way and persevere. And there's a reason. There's a prize at the end of this one. So
Yeah, dude.
There's a reason to do it.
There is a bounty.
Yeah.
Take the bounty, dude. Win the bounty. Yeah, very exciting. I'm excited to see what everybody comes up with. And like I said, or like Luke said, we'll have stuff linked below. It'll give you everything you need to know. And I'll see about putting the trailer, the promo at the end of this episode.
Thank you.
Another quick aside. Check out Luke's live on Instagram. Really great video of him and Casey talking about Fire in the Tall Grass, but also just kind of Veritas's plans for the future to some degree. And also check out, Luke was on a podcast this week. Last
and
Saturday.
Quote,
yeah, dude. So
you can
check that out.
the rewind of that and see the live chat on replay too, and see some of the guys from the Discord. Thank you guys for showing up and supporting during that conversation. That was awesome, and asking some good questions. So
Yeah.
including you,
And
Daniel, you asked a good question.
And I quote podcast is very entertaining. Big member of the Discord, and he runs a podcast. So cool to be working with all these different people, connecting, networking, making stuff happen.
Right. I'm excited, dude. We're building a fun community. That Discord's getting very active, and we're almost, dude. We were talking about almost being at 80 or something, and then
Yeah.
that number's growing. So we might be at 100 soon. You know, what I mean, you might be the 100th now. It's like this is super cool.
Yeah, that
to
is
meet
really
more.
cool.
Imagine meeting 100 men's adventure fiction fans. Let's go. That's the place to do it.
I know. Yeah, and if you're not in the Discord, thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging
Yeah.
out. Thank you for watching. Yeah, good
I
stuff.
guess that's all we got, man. Go watch Spencer Dutton kick some butt, and then he'll make a Western.
Yeah, dude. And join the Discord if you want to. Just keep watching if not.
All right, guys. Take care.
We'll see you next time.